Welcome back, YouTube. We're working on the Fiat again. Today we're going to be doing an engine flush and an oil change. And I wanted to let you guys know how I do it versus the way some people do their oil change. I like to use an engine flush every other oil change to help get rid of carbon and other harsh contaminants that might build up in your engine over time, especially if you have a higher mileage vehicle, say like 50,000 miles or more. And the product that I like to use, it's called liquid moly, and it is an engine flush from their Pro Line series. So what you do with this is you go ahead and run your engine up to operating temperature. Once you get it up to operating temperature, you shut your engine off, you pour the product into the oil, and you start the car, let it run for 10 to 15 minutes without revving or driving or anything. You just completely let it just idle, and then once you do that, you turn it off and you're free to go ahead and change your oil just like normal. One thing that this product does is it thins out the oil. That way it can attack all of the contaminants such as carbon or any other films that get built up inside the engine that can reduce your compression. It can remove the contaminants off of the rings. It's good to have if your engine is burning oil or using oil a little bit more than you think it should. This can help restore. So after I get the car jacked up and on jack stands, I go ahead and slide everything I need underneath, and then I drain the oil. And while the oil is draining, then I go ahead and I remove the intake system. The reason you got to remove the intake is because the oil filter is actually up top and it sits under the intake. So you can't see it, but I'll show you in a little bit that the oil filter is actually right down there. So by removing the intake out, we can reach that. After we get that intake off there, the thing is that with aftermarket intakes, sometimes you have hoses and everything that you need to move out of the way, which is my case. So I have this hose that I took off the intake, and I just plug it into this plastic adapter to hold it in place. But as you can see, down there is a cap, and that is where your oil filter resides. So your oil filter cap is going to be a 1 1/16 inch socket. I would suggest using some kind of an adapter that's adjustable. Makes it a lot easier for getting that filter off. Now another thing that you're gonna have to do when you're taking that filter off is it's extremely important not to forget that you need to move your oil pan, so that when you take that cap off the oil filter, all that oil when you're pulling the filter out is going to go down. So I went ahead and I got the oil cap for the filter loosened, and because I have the Madness 500 front mount intake or intercooler, the windshield washer fluid reservoir has been raised, so I had to maneuver it around a little bit in order to fit this big socket down inside the engine bay to fit on the oil filter cap. And you also have to keep in mind that when you're doing this, everything is hot. So okay, you got the filter loose. There's the cap. The filter actually came off of the cap. Usually it sticks on there, but it came off. No metal or anything, so that's good. You can tell that that engine flush really did its job because you can see how thick the filter part of the oil filter, how thick the contaminants are. So now that we got that, I'll go underneath and I will clean up any oil that's been spilled and then work on installing the new filter. Okay, so we got our European Formula 5W40 from Napa, which is made by Valvoline, and we have our Napa Gold oil filter. So what we do is we take this old filter. I always take the old one and put it in the box. Don't forget your new O-ring for the oil cap, the oil filter cap. And then there's a little bit of oil residue left over in the cap, so I am going to take a towel and see if I can't wipe the majority of that out. Alright, so the ring, the rubber ring on the cap has to come off, and you have a new one to put on, so you just have to roll it off. But the trick is, since everything is oily and slippery, you've got to maneuver it. Alright, so now we put the new ring on. Alright, just like that. So we put that in there, push it down, snaps into place, you can turn it over and it won't fall out. That way when you're putting it in, it won't fall out and fall on the ground. So we do everything in reverse. Once you get everything buttoned back up, the only thing you have to do now is to put the oil in. Like I said before, I use the European Formula Napa oil 5W40. It's made by Valvoline and it is the European spec. So we got all the oil in, the 4 quarts. So I'm going to go ahead and start it and let it run for a little bit and then come back out and check for leaks. Alright, so what I'm doing under here is I'm using my light and I'm wiping off all of the excess oil from where I took the filter out. Okay, so when I was under here looking at oil leaks, I saw a bunch of oil here and it made me concerned, so I threw the lights under here and then got some brake cleaner and sprayed it off and then wiped it down. But I was a little bit concerned when all it was the residue from taking the oil filter out. So if you're worried, You can do the same thing, spray it with brake cleaner and then wipe it down, and you'll be able to see if it's leaking.